All right, thank you all for getting here on time again. My name is Derek Lewis, and I serve as the National Field Organizer for the Youth and College Division. It is my honor and an extreme privilege to welcome you to the Youth and College Training Webinar Series, where it's entitled Black Women Lead. It is a great honor to be with these Black women, as you see that they are in their natural state. So I will sit back and I will as we say, step back and let them step up and let them take over the training. Ladies, women, it is now in your hands.
Thank you, Derek, and good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining. I am Jada Hampton, the current Kentucky State Conference Youth and College Division President, and I am so honored to sit here and talk with you all with these two other lovely ladies as we talk about Black women leading and fighting white supremacists through COVID-19. Tonight, we're going to discuss a 10-point plan, bringing awareness to the situation at hand and making it marketable for engagement.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amari Fenoy, and I proudly serve as the state president for the Georgia Youth and College Division. It is a pleasure to join these two ladies as we, deliver some important content to you all. And I really do hope that you use this content and, further the movement that we're trying to go ahead and progress.
Hi, everyone. I'm Siobhan Steuben, Texas NAACP Youth and College Division President, and I'm really excited just to be here with you all and definitely to be here with these other phenomenal women as we just shed light and share on our experiences and hopefully give you some tools that'll help you be involved in the future.
So we're here discussing Black women in leadership. And I know one question that was asked of us is, how can NAACP support, Black women in leadership? And I think that's an important discussion, to have before we even, progress. I know for me personally, I feel as if I wish that, even though NAACP is a male-dominated organization, and for three women to be state conference presidents, and especially most of us in the South, that's very big. I think what I wish I had more of was big sisters within the organization to come and mentor or kind of give a lending hand versus having to seek that. And it's not just on those two, because I commend Ms. Brown, I commend Tiffany, I commend Jazz, because they have really been an influence, but I just wish that was a little bit more, a little bit more present, a little bit more visible.
Yeah, I can agree with that, Amari. I would definitely say having that like intergenerational experience and relationship so that we can kind of mend bridges across, even in our own organization. But I would say even more to that for me is kind of just letting the men know, like kind of step out the way sometimes. So, this is a male dominated space, but women are here, we fight for the injustices of Black men all the time. So, let us have our seat at the table. We're here for a reason. We have a perspective that's important. So if we're fighting for you, we have something of importance and something that is needed. So go ahead and let us have our time as well.
Yes, definitely. I say invest and support in us because I always like to say, if you want a job done and you want it done correctly, you have a Black woman do it.
So in what ways do you all feel like the NAACP needs to kind of push that? Like, so how can we develop ways to do that? Other than, I know what we're doing now is also, a push for that. Three phenomenal leaders within NAACP are here having this conversation, and we're now passing along what we had to do. Like, we're creating a blueprint versus, supplying people with that information so they can be proactive versus reactive. But like, in what other ways can that information kind of be supplied to other Black women to further their leadership at the NAACP?
I would say by allowing us to have more spaces like this, but in person, definitely. giving us all a voice to share ideas, bounce off one another, because as women, we do come up with some great ideas. We just might not have the resources to implement them at the time. So I feel as if we can all gather in one room and feel our power come together, then that's when we know we've created and done something great. So that's one way.
I agree. Even more to that, even during this time or even in person after those spaces have been created and filled, but like keeping up with that network. So start a group chat, start a mentorship program, start something where, you're not just having these spaces and these conversations, every so often, every blue moon, but this is an everyday thing. I would love it if every day I woke up and like had a conversation with another Black woman, another Black leader. And so reach out to other leaders. I know that's something I've done in NAACP with other women state conference presidents, including the ones on this call, and just said like, hey sis, I see the work you're doing. Let's be friends. And that goes a long way. So just continue to do that, reach out. We talked about mentorship and it's great having other people reach out to you, but also be willing to extend your hand and the olive branch to build that relationship.
I think someone said be genuine. I think that's perfect.
Definitely. So my question to you all would be, what are some ways to get young Black women more engaged?
I know for me personally, the way I got engaged was the president at the time when I was a sophomore, the president of the NAACP at Spelman kind of basically said, I think you would be a great, fit for the leadership. Here's the mission. And basically just reaching out, being that olive branch. I think we mentioned that before, but I think that's how you kind of get young women involved, is helping them understand the progression that NAACP has made, and have they can be a part of that progress and that change, just kind of like bringing forth the mission and understanding that what we're doing is bigger than us and it's for the community. And this is exactly what that organization does. Just being genuine in the message, I think that does great.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes to my point again about reaching out to people. So bring somebody in, so invite somebody else to the conversation. I think it does come across as genuine when you personally take the time to invest in somebody and say, hey, I think you could do this, or hey, have you heard about this opportunity? Do you just want to learn more? So it doesn't always take for that person to say, hey, this is what I'm interested in doing, but just exposing somebody to it, even if they just don't know about it or they don't know if it's for them. Okay, well, I have a question for y'all. Seeing that this is a Black woman leadership training, but we may have some men on the call too. So what can they do more to support us as well, as Black women leaders, or just as Black women in general?
I would say meeting us where we're at.
Allyship. Just be an ally. If you see that we aren't getting not the attention that we need, but if you're seeing that we're not having that voice that you will have that's present, I just ask that you go ahead and lift this up we don't need to have that seat at the table. Make sure that we have that seat at the table as well. All right, so I think we're ready to begin with our 10-point plan. Are we able to pull up the PowerPoint?
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with the first step. And so again, this is going to be a 10-point plan for how to enter into the space of movements and breaking injustices. And so the first one is about connecting with your state conference and your national staff. And so this could look different in a different organization, but for NAACP, this is some of the language that we use.
So I think it's important, especially for when we start with the Ahmaud Arbery, is to make sure that we're proactive versus reactive. So already having that relationship with your state conference so that on the back end, you're not trying to build a relationship while also trying to build the movement. More so the case is already having that line of communication with the state conference and nationals helps you amplify your message. So the importance is going ahead and build that mentorship before the plan even happens. So before you have to try to dig yourself out of something, go ahead and let's move forward and make sure that we have that connection already. Our second step is research and facts and where change can be implemented. I know we have two pictures up. One video was shown with us, shared with me of an ex-police officer giving facts about the case, which were not facts. I think in many cases we share images like the one below too, whereas Brian Kemp and the individual where people claim was one of the Michaels, which is in the case with Ahmaud Arbery. Spreading or trying to debunk the false information is important with trying to push forth the correct information. So if you see images like this, I think the best way to ensure that the facts are present is saying, hey, this information is actually not correct. Here's a flyer that has been created with actual facts from NAACP that you can actually use to move forward and to figure out how to make sure that the clear messaging is there, because the importance is the messaging is essential to the movement, and it's making sure that you have the proper information in order that you spread to the masses versus several individuals having the wrong information and it kind of, shattering what you're trying to accomplish.
And also adding to that, I would say as advocates and leaders of our communities, it is important that we have accurate sources and provide people with facts and truth to reach our goals of creating demands and executing them accordingly.
So for step 3, you want to identify an organization representative. So again, this might be different in a different organization, but we have state conferences and also youth and college division as well as units within those states. So you want to identify an organization representative among that general group of people.
Yeah, the best practice, I know for us in Georgia, the best practice was having the state conference presidents be the spokesperson. Because technically they're already supposed to be the spokespersons for whatever goes through. They're supposed to be like not the face, but they're supposed to be the individuals that kind of put forth the messaging for the state. So ensuring that your state conference president and your youth and college president, as well as possibly the local branch president, have the same messaging clear across. And it's helpful if you're on one accord with the messaging, ensuring that like 5 individuals with the NAACP shirt are spreading 5 different facts. We want to make sure that it's across the board and understanding what the family's needs are and ensuring that they are met prior to distributing any information. So like I said, local branch president, state conference president, youth and college president, just making sure that those individuals are the ones who are speaking on behalf and giving the facts, because they've already had a conversation. They've already communicated with the family, which we'll talk about later, but ensuring that the demands of the family are present are essential to keeping the movement afloat. And I believe our next slide is it.
It's reaching out to the family to seek the goals and outcomes.
Thank you. So reaching out to the family to seek the goals and the outcomes. So before you can come up with the action plan with the demands, it's important that you communicate with the family. So I know for us, when having a conversation with Ahmaud's family was essential because we need to know what their family was seeking prior to us making any actions or any engagement. So when we had the conversation with them from Ahmad's family, we got these 3 action items, which were awareness, indictment, conviction. In order for us to list any demands, we had to be respectful to the family because we can't advocate on their behalf without having a conversation with them. It's important that we don't make our own agenda, but we ensure that we incorporate the families who we are trying to seek justice for in these cases. And just making sure that you relay that information between, them, make sure that you're their relying person to relay the information between, them and the media.
Going on to step 5, which is identifying who are the stakeholders, is very important when leading any movement. So within NAACP being internal, so that will be us identifying other members that we can seek help from and collaborate with, which is very important, but also identifying who this action is directed towards. So whether that's your mayor, chief of police, attorney general, or anyone that has the power and influence to influence a decision within the legislation that you are trying to seek change for.
Okay, so next for step 6, you want to identify the societal connection. So this is where you're developing your call to action, your demands, and how you will accomplish it. So a big question that you can ask is, how does the situation connect to the larger picture surrounding injustice? So what system are you also trying to interrupt or disrupt to bring about fairness and equity? So when you think about, for instance, Texas in 2019 was working on the state of execution for Rodney Reed. So that was about death row and fair trials. So how does this connect to the bigger picture in terms of how to identify your stakeholders to say, this needs to have actions directed towards our district attorney, towards our governor, towards whatever elected official or whoever is in place to make that decision, or who needs to be held accountable. So the next part is also about making it marketable for engagement. So you want to be sure that you're able to share a narrative. So with Rodney Reed, we're able to say, okay, this is a man that's been in prison for a long period of time, did not have a fair trial, and for this the entire period of time has said that he's innocent. So being able to share that narrative in a way that communicates why justice needs to be met. So on top of that, you want to make sure you have graphics. So what is going to be eye-catching? What is going to get people to understand not just the narrative? So how are you able to communicate the narrative on paper or on screen, but also what's going to make them remember it? So you want to make sure you have, nice colors. You want to make sure you have contrast and things like that as well. So it's nice if you have somebody who is well-versed in graphics. The next one is hashtag. So that's really helpful, especially in our age of social media, especially during a lot of shelter in places and stay at home orders in our virtual world right now. So for instance, with Ahmaud Arbery, I Run with Ahmaud was a really great example of how to tell his narrative about him running in his own neighborhood and being murdered. And then also it's a hashtag that carries on what the future actions are. So it's catchy to tell his story, but also is able to be put on graphics, but also continues to be used for future events as well. So it's something that isn't just a one-time occurrence. It's something that can be continually used.
So now this is going into step 7, which is building coalitions to build political power. There is strength in numbers, so the more members, the more pressure. So it's always great to have partners. In regards to Breonna Taylor, our partner is currently the Action Network. We're working with them, and then also local and statewide activists. It's always good to have someone local on a local issue. For us, we had someone from Paducah, Kentucky, who was always out in the field. He was recently on our town hall. His name is Corbin Snarden. State politicians is always great. They're willing to listen and engage as they are here to serve us. And then also NAACP state conference collaboration. What you see right here is 3 state conferences coming together across the region to support and strengthen one another with our actions. Next will be establishing methods of communication. So this goes into marketable, which she just explained. So having graphics, when we created our toolkit on our Google Drive, we used Bitly to track link click engagements, which was helpful to database, and then also having a link tree on our social media to have all of our Bitlys, our Google Forms, our Form Slacks, which was very helpful. We use Google Forms, or you can use Form Slacks to database, getting contact information, emails, state addresses, and everything, so that you can use your MailChimp to send out a mass email.
Okay, so that leads to step 9. So once you've completed step 1 through 8, you want to make sure that you're keeping everyone engaged, followed up on, and that you're retaining them for the movement, because like Jada said, it's better with numbers. So you want to make sure that those numbers are maintained. So for all of us, so Texas, Georgia, and Kentucky, we developed week of actions around our areas that we were supporting. So this can look different. So it can look like a day of action or a day of advocacy. But a lot of us develop week of actions. And so this is to make sure that we're able to give up-to-date information on the issue, but also we're able to continue to let people know that this is still so important. So the week of action is really great. So Breonna Taylor's week of action is happening right now. And so it's really important to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a one-day occurrence. This is not one day that isn't important. It's going to be still important until the situation is resolved. The second option is op-ed. So it's a way for you to publish your thoughts, write an opinion-based article, an opinion-based piece that other people can see, so it can be casted to a different audience. The other is social media events, which is really important right now. And so it's important to also realize that these can happen even when we are able to, quote unquote, go outside. So you can still be putting on Instagram lives, you can still be putting on trainings and Zooms, just like this one, Twitter polls and Facebook lives as well. So using social media to your advantage, that's why those graphics and those hashtags are really helpful as well, because you're able to cast your net a little bit wider. The fourth is about town halls. So being able to convene in that space and tell people information face to face. Information is also important when you're able to really get across that feeling and emotion of why everything is so necessary. So having that in-person space, which also kind of combines with rallies. I know for Rodney Reed, there was a rally in Austin, so the Capitol, and we were able to walk around the governor's mansion, and that was really impactful. It was a statement, a physical statement. So those are also helpful. So these are all ways that you can continue to retain engagement from other people, those who are supporting the issue, but also continue to spread awareness on the issue as well. So for our final step, once the situation has been resolved, it has come to an end, there has been some type of solution, we want to make sure that all the people that were supporting are also still involved in the conversation. So we realize that a lot of the issues that we talk about, they can be resolved through voter registration and mobilization. So how do we get people to understand that when you register to vote, you also have to vote, and this affects your local government. This affects state. It doesn't just affect who the president of the United States is, but it starts locally and it builds up. So how do we increase that by educating people on voter registration, knowing when to register, when you need to update your registration, as well as mobilizing around those issues and finding a reason for them to feel that it's so important for them to go vote. So finding a reason that really impacts them. So the other thing is finding your own passion and your role in your vehicle. So it's important to think about the 3 questions below, and it kind of breaks down how you can think about those 3 things. So what are you interested in, and what are you passionate about? What do you want to change? So if your interest is in policy, how can you be more engaged in that area? What are the things that you need to do in order to impact that? And then what is your role going to be? Are you going to be a member of an organization? Are you going to take on other executive positions? Do you want to run for public office? Or even do you just want to advocate on your own, just on your social media or in your community? What does that look like for you? So what role do you want to play in the movement? And then the third one is kind of just what's your vehicle? So it doesn't have to be an organization, but that's our example of finding an organization that cares about making a progressive impact on the issues that you also care about. So for me, I know I chose NAACP because it's very holistic. In a sense, we care about equity for everybody. We want our people to have the same privileges that some of our counterparts have. So we want to ensure that everyone just has a fair chance at life. And so that's why I chose NAACP, and it's about everything that I care about, which is everything in a sense. And so we want to also, you want to think about that when you're joining an organization or you're thinking about your passions and how it can connect to something. How can you increase your numbers, of, as we said on this call, where it can be more than just you, or even how can you build your own organization, your own nonprofit, so that you can also amplify that voice and support another organization or another person. So in a nutshell, those were steps 1 through 10. And so we can definitely answer any questions for you all on those steps, or clarify any, or even questions about Black women in leadership, or questions about NAACP, whatever you have in mind.
I actually saw one question in the chat asking about the method of communications for step 8. So mostly, I believe all of them are free except for Form Slack, but they do allow a 14-day trial period. However, I found Google Forms to be easier, especially since I already used the toolkit for the Google Drive. Just keeping everything in one space made it much easier, but Form Slack is an option.
I think you said something very important though, is keeping things in one place, because documentation throughout this whole process is so essential in ensuring that you have everything written down. So how many people did we gain this day, or how many people do we have now? How do we add them to our database? Just making sure that you have one central location for everything is so essential to keeping everything in order.
Exactly, and it keeps people engaged because they see that organization within. Right. So yeah, definitely.
So I have a question for you all. So what was the most effective methods for you? So I know, Jada, you all had a week of actions. And Siobhan, you all had, multiple protests aligned. How do you kind of ensure that all of those things are in order? I know that we kind of talked about, I know in this time we can't necessarily protest physically, but there are ways to virtually do that, which is what you have done, Jada, and what we did in Georgia. But can we kind of speak a little bit more light about the importance of still creating those virtual actions to ensuring that everyone is still not only engaged, but you're also invested in the narrative that you're trying to not push out, but you're trying to produce about that individual that you're advocating for?
Yes, definitely, because it's all about keeping the movement alive. So when developing our week of actions, we had to think of COVID-19 in place, but also work around people's schedules, because we know that essentially everyone is working and doing Zoom calls. Some people might still be in school. So finding small events that will still impact our demands, having those actions that are going to have a huge impact. So sending mass emails one day for our week of action was very impactful. That actually led to 2 of our demands being met. Just by the day we found out. So having that small little initiative led to a big situation, which was great.
Yeah, I'll say for us, developing the week of action was really great, but ours a lot was about communication beforehand. So making sure we spread the word and told them, hey, this is going on. So it was important to let our units know, hey, we're going to go to Austin and we're going to participate in this rally. Hey, we're having a Zoom call, just so that you all can understand what is happening with this situation. It was different because we weren't in this inside lifestyle. So it was also helpful, we had radio appearances. So more often people are probably in the car going places back then. So it was easier for people to hear and say, oh, okay, well, I've heard about that. I saw it on social media. Okay, now I'm hearing about it on the radio. Okay, they're having a week of action. What is something I can show up and do? So for us, it was actually some of the tactics that we're using now during quarantine that were helpful even beforehand.
Yeah, and allowing them to have a week of action just in case they might have missed a day. Well, I can still do this day and this day. Having options for them was definitely one.
I think we have a few questions. I see for step 3, how do you go about identifying representative? And then can you go more in detail about what that process looks like? I know on our end, figuring like, so identifying a representative, let's go back. I think that slide was within the NAACP internal. So identifying, am I correct? So, or I think you're referring to stakeholders in that case, because I believe step 3 was reaching out to the facts and where can change be implemented. So when we talked about reaching out to representatives, figuring out those stakeholders, I know in Georgia, our stakeholder was who was important to kind of get, the pressure on was the DA, because they were kept, pushing along the case, or they weren't trying. So like the pressure was on for us to go ahead and identify that individual. I think details about that is knowing the facts of the case. So I know every case is different. Jada, you all may have to figure out who else to contact in that sense. And then Siobhan, somebody else. So like, I think it's all situational about who you have to directly contact for that information.
Yeah, it's all about the situation. I know for Breonna Taylor's case, it was first the chief of police and then the mayor and then the governor. So just basically holding all the elected officials accountable at that point for us.
Yeah, I know for Rodney Reed, our focus was solely on the governor because that was the only person who could overturn the decision. So yeah, it definitely depends on where you can start and who has the final say. And so for Rodney Reed specifically, it was a long-standing case. So that was kind of the final straw. They had already tried in the past to target these other officials and these other representatives. So that was the last resort for us.
So the next question was, how have you all been taking care of yourself during this time? I can tell sleep, but that's the part of this fight is no longer about me. So I've been taking care of myself by at least giving myself some breathing time, waking up in the morning and doing my daily morning routine and then getting my day started.
Yeah, for me, I've been just celebrating just being able to have a place to shelter in place. So my mom definitely prays about that every morning. So when we eat breakfast and she's praying over us, just being thankful for what we do have because some people don't have that opportunity. But also, I think being a recent graduate has definitely been some weight off my shoulders. So I'm able to sleep a little bit more. So that's helpful. But aside from that, I think just celebrating the little moments and realizing it's okay if something doesn't get done. I know the other 2 women on this panel can definitely relate to like just always being on the go and wanting to get things done and feeling like everything is urgent. And so I definitely relate to that and just understanding in myself, like there are some things that can wait and to take care of yourself or else you can't take care of those other things too.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was kind of an activity that you like to have a release. I know oftentimes I feel like you said, we want to continuously dive into work and we want to stay motivated. But after talking to Tiffany, especially, it was like you have to find your moment too to gather yourself, because if you're not whole, you're not going to have the ability to help someone else. So if I don't find my own outlets, I can't, help the family in the way that we want proper. If we don't get enough sleep, there's no way for me to assist you because I'm half asleep. But just finding that activity, like I know for me throughout this time, for now, for some reason, I run 2 miles. I've never done that before. Just got up actively decided, I want to go work out and run 2 miles and do stairs. But the thing is, it's such a healthy release for you to find that activity that you can take aside for 2 hours and then get back to doing the work. And also prioritizing your time is a self-care situation. Start in the morning. Don't wait, do prioritize. If you have work first, do your work first, but then get to the work that we need to have done to continue the movement. I think those are the self-care tips, like that's the best, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
I need to join you in this 2-mile run because I haven't gotten there yet.
It took me graduate. Don't think I just ran out there and just did the 2 miles. you had to turn your gospel on and keep it moving.
I'll run out the door and run right back in.
Exactly.
I think we have another question. As state presidents, how do you engage the youth councils and college chapters within your state? How do you maintain an effective state YC division? I know for us, it's actually, so our board varies, under 25, we have some individuals on the board who are like, I think my VP is like 16. We created things like TikToks or like, just certain things that will actually appeal to the younger demographic to also keep them engaged. And it worked. Also just reaching out to them and seeing if they even understand the content that we're going through, and also what are the best ways for them to also further them in their movement.
Yes. We often do all unit calls, just to engage with one another, see if they have any issues that they need handled, how can we best serve them. That is one way we engage. We just started our Instagram page because I know a lot of people are on Instagram now. So that's another way. We just try to keep and stay up to date with them.
Yeah, we just try to stay in constant communication. So we have a group me, we have an email list that is like a running list for the past, I want to say like 6 years. So we try to always keep that updated. But we're also trying out new things like a newsletter for just different themes for each month. So that'll be like a monthly thing. And then we're also doing some individual kind of check-ins with our youth councils to see how they can be better engaged. So just having that personal connection with them. I know for me personally, I've only ever been involved in a college chapter. And so I don't know the experience of youth council members. So just getting that perspective. So we do have 2 youth council members on our executive committee. So that's also been helpful in establishing, okay, well, maybe we need a youth council task force so that we can say, how can we better serve them and survey them in certain ways? So having them go back to the youth council and say, hey, what are some things that we could do better to make this opportunity more experiential for you, or even just more applicable to you, because it does look different between a college chapter and a youth council. But then even on the college chapter side, I would say our college chapters are really independent. So just supplying them with resources and seeing how we can model some of the things that they can be working on the state level, so that they don't just see us giving them information, but also see us doing it as well.
I think we have another question. How important is it to y'all that the presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden chose a Black woman as his VP, a progressive one? Did I miss that?
Can you read the question again?
It says, how important is it to y'all that the presumptive Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, chose a Black woman as his VP, a progressive one at that? Did I miss that news?
I mean, I missed the news, but I can say I think it is important in terms of us seeing people that look like us in those spaces. But at the same time, I hope that it's not just to gain the Black vote, that it's not just because it looks good, because as my mom would say, just because you sugarcoat it doesn't make it candy. So to me, having a Black woman is beautiful. I love to see that in a role, especially a highly elected one. But I hope it's for a progression and progression of people that look like us, or just progression of people as a whole, but not just for show.
And I will second you on that one. So it looks like we have another question. Do you ever feel discouraged after seeing all of the crimes committed against the Black community? How do you overcome this and stay motivated in your fight?
I mean, me personally, I don't feel discouraged. I personally get angry. So and so that's something that I see and I'm like, why is this happening? Um, and how can I fix it? So I think it can be discouraging when you see, that we're not getting justice or it's not coming as quickly as we think. But for me, it's also encouragement at the same time for what can I be doing um, to better that conversation, so that that conversation can then be met with actions to then be met with a resolution. But I can definitely understand many people feeling like it is discouraging and why should I continue in this fight if I'm continually getting um, the answers that I don't want to hear. But I think for me personally, it's more about every no is how can I make it into a yes.
Right.
I think that's important because I think we talked last week on the live about how do you kind of, when you feel disappointed, when you feel angry, how do you kind of just turn that energy into productivity? So also building, even if you don't build your faith in the systems, build your faith in NAACP and build your faith in Black political power and build your faith in coalition building and build your faith in Black women, like build your faith in those areas to where you're not discouraged. Like I know coming into my Arbery case, we were very discouraged because we haven't received justice in how many years. We have yet to see anyone indicted. We have yet to see really anything that we feel has been productive. So it's like using that discouragement to actually fuel you versus letting it get you down within this movement. Just kind of put your faith in other areas, like how we're mobilizing now, the We Are Done Dying campaign. The whole purpose of that is because people are disappointed. They do feel disappointed, but it's time for us to go ahead and fix our commitment to our community and making sure that we continue to push forth that change.
Yes, definitely. And as this being my first movement leading, it was a lot of bumps in the roads that led me to discouragement. And so it was like one day of the week of action, our goal is not being met. So how can we better the next day, all the way up until the end of the week to make sure? And so now we're seeing progress. So just like you said, feeling that action definitely was a way to stay motivated in the fight.
So I have a question too. So we do have, so I know one thing for us is we're pushing voters mobilization and, registration and, get people out to vote. But how do we reassure our youth that those action items actually work? Like, I know we have faith in it. We have faith in Black coalition building, but how do we explain to those individuals who are just now entering the age to vote, how important, their vote is? Because I know we see, celebrities like Diddy saying like, we have to buy back, people have to, earn our vote. And it's not really a productive message because now people are withholding their vote versus actually using it to further their voice. So I know we have a younger group of individuals who feel discouraged because this is in some cases, these are some youth's first time ever experiencing something like this because they were too young to really understand the hurt behind Trayvon Martin, too early to understand the hurt behind Mike Brown. So how do we kind of propel them forward in this movement and having that conversation? I know we kind of mentioned it earlier with having our younger demographic, but how do we have them in the terms of educated in advocacy and voting? Because that's their role too. Like, we are voting for their future and not just our present time.
Exactly. And we have to continue to support and let them know that they have power in their voice. So their vote counts just as much as anyone's. And I think that if we continue to put back that education into our communities and into our youth and invest our time, that is when we can see more results at the polls and more younger people getting involved and looking at the political side of things. So
Yeah, I think it does all start with education, like Amari said. How do we get them to understand how it works, why it works, and how it can work if we all go register, if we all vote. And so I think it starts too with, like we said, finding a reason for them to vote. So getting them to see that, okay, if you don't like who's in this position, you know, don't withhold your vote necessarily, but at least cast the vote that you think is best for right, I guess not for right now, but don't withhold your vote because you don't think it matters. Withhold your vote if you think there isn't a better or there isn't a candidate that represents your ideas, that if you don't think they deserve to be in office, if they're completely wrong for the progression of our country. But again, don't let them buy your vote either. So I think it also is about raising more political power as well, and understanding that we can impact that system by running in those systems as well. So how do we build people that will also run for these elected positions so that we can vote for somebody who we believe in, who believes in lifting us up as well?
Yeah. So we have some questions off of YouTube. One question is, if you could change one thing about the NAACP, what would it be?
If there was one thing that I could change, and this is just me being completely honest, is that ideal that individual. So I'm a newcomer in NAACP, technically, not really. So I've been in the organization for 5 years. So I wasn't born into this. My parents weren't, in NAACP. It's something where I read the message my sophomore year of college and was like, this is where I want to be, and this is where I want to be placed. But I feel as if we have that idea of like NAACP elitism that kind of just like damages our growth in some ways. So opening a space for us who are just entered the building to also have some type of room versus just saying, versus that push of like that legacy or that lineage within NAACP. We are, even though I was not born into this, I do have some great ideas and I do have something to bring forth. I mean, it's obvious in how the state of Georgia has been ran within like the last 5 years. So, just understanding that, there is room for growth for everyone at the table and not just, those individuals have been there since they were like 5.
I said that, Madam President. But I second that completely. And I also think in a similar thought of what youth and college representation looks like as well. So how do we include more youth voices when it comes to these adult conversations? Because if you ask me, I'm 21 years old, I'm an adult. Some people may disagree, but why am I not included in those conversations? We talked about having state conference collaborations and having connections with the adult state conference, and the fact that we have to specify youth and college and adult. And granted, there are different divisions, but how we have to enter that space like that. So how can we have more youth that are involved in the organization and making an impact? And it's not just seen as, the little kids are doing something today. But we're actually a part of this organization. I'm a member of this organization, just like somebody who's been a member for 80 years. So how can we amplify that movement and that voice so that everybody is having a say in this organization a little bit more than we do now?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you all on that one. I believe that our national program Next Gen is just the perfect thing for that. It gives us that space as youth or as young adults, I would like to say, to come up in an organization and gain the knowledge and skills that it takes, so that way we can be that next generation of NAACP leaders.
Yeah, I agree with that in terms of the next generation. I guess what I want to echo again is just, even the three of us on this call, like we are in the generation of NAACP now. So I shouldn't, as much as Next Gen is a beautiful program, I shouldn't have to be a part of Next Gen for my voice to be heard, or a seat at the table, a table that I already thought I was a part of.
Right. Yeah. Definitely can see that as well.
So it's a question. How do I, as a male, ensure that I create a safe space for Black women to lead? I don't think it's necessarily even like creating that space for them to, I would say, be that advocate or that ally, because in some spaces, I feel like the light is dimmed on Black women, especially within the organization. Let's say, for instance, I feel like one voice is slightly more respected than the other, which shouldn't be, a thing, because we all have great ideas to bring to the table. And obviously, the leadership is present, but I would just say, so if you see that your sister is down or your sister's not being heard, open up the floor. If you have that privilege to open up that floor for her to speak. And it's not necessarily that she really needs you to, bring that door, but it's like you have that seat at the table, so bring her up to it too, and don't just leave her in the back shadows. Just speak up, be that advocate, be that ally. I think we constantly have that conversation, and I think it's even harder to continue to have that conversation if individuals aren't listening. So it's like you don't have to necessarily create that seat that a person has their own leadership skills, but just kind of invite them to the table. Just have them have that space to speak.
Second that.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that.
You hit it right on the head with that one.
Okay, I see another one. It says, hey, great conversation. I love the model you all are setting. Black women within the organization. As far as multi-generational mentorship and support goes, what models do you have in mind to get more support to upcoming female leaders who want to make a difference but don't know how or lack the experience?
I would go back to saying that mentorship, definitely. Because I know that I looked up to Tiffany and I looked up to Akoshua within our own organization. So just being able to be in those same spaces with them, that built my confidence, for one. For two, I was able to witness firsthand some of their leadership skills and take that in and implement it in my own way to fit my leadership style. So I would say that for that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they meant like a model, like a literal one. So I mean, there are so many models for like, if you had like, if there was an application process, it was a national mentorship program. But I think to start it off, we have to show that it's something that we want and something that's already existing. So even if it starts with a group of people, and let's say somebody reaches out to me and now we've created that mentorship and it's something that we have marketed and said, hey, this has been my mentor for 3 years, and we met through NAACP, and this is how we furthered that relationship. And then somebody else continues to do the same, and then it becomes something official. So I think right now, I don't think there's a model that we can say that will work best, but more of something that we have to model within ourselves first, to be able to create an actual model for something that maybe is an application process or something where there is mentorship matching or something like that.
I think that's a perfect question. I don't think there's any particular perfect model for that. It's just if you see a younger sister who, I would say needs guidance, but if you have a certain platform that she does not, just go ahead and uplift that. So, and then also I agree with that mentorship portion of it. Like let's say we're college, students, let's go find somebody from the youth council and not boost them up, but to kind of show them the ropes so they can understand, this is what it goes into leadership with the NAACP. And not in this leadership within any, any organization or anything. So just like kind of break down the basis or the first steps for them and to help them grow within that process, and by just like watching or shadowing you in those areas. So invite them to a conference call or invite them to this, or, just kind of be that present figure for them to kind of show them the way and the ins and outs. Because I know and then also open opportunities for them. There are countless opportunities that Tiffany or Jazz or Miss Brown have opened up for me that I would have never gotten before if it wasn't for them. So just being that opportunity for that person. If you can't speak here today, help them build their leadership skills and speak on that day. I'm pretty sure that putting those people in those action, situations is the best growth and mentorship that you could possibly do.
Yeah, and I think too, if you build those now, like Amari was saying, college chapters, even youth councils, imagine what that will be years to come. So even if it's not something that somebody is doing to you right now, how can you help somebody and mentor somebody now, so that as we do grow older, that is something that is longstanding, and it's even a model that just automatically forms. We have another question which says, what specific topics should NAACP youth and college units be talking about in a town hall meeting throughout the summer and especially the fall? For instance, general elections, know your rights, COVID-19, racial disparities, and environmental racism. So I think those are all great topics to be discussing. I think it also just depends on how we're continuing to progress throughout the world and what's happening. So I think it just depended on current events. But I think those are great starts, especially the know your rights and talking about, stay at home orders, criminalization in the Black community during this time, what it's going to look like afterwards. I know there's a lot of discussion around wearing masks and what that means for Black people, what type of stereotyping comes about with that, what that's going to look like post COVID-19 as well. So I think a big theme right now has been COVID-19, but also making sure you focus on the conversations that were happening before COVID-19 because those haven't gone away.
Yep. And also, I was watching Amari's town hall the other day, her live video on Instagram, and she said knowing who's on your ballot.
Mhm.
I think those conversations will be good as well to have, knowing who's on your ballot and what actions that they say they're going to bring towards you as a citizen that's going to vote for them. That's definitely important as well. So you know who your vote is going to.
Yeah, during quarantine, I think this summer is definitely a time of education. So definitely the November ballot, what is going on in there. Not only just the November ballot, but they're also on the November ballot is more than just candidates. There are also some policies that we need to vote on. So it's like having education about that. I was having a conversation with someone younger, and they didn't know that. A new voter didn't know that it was just more than people on the ballot. So I think it's important to have those educational forums and also maybe some leadership forums or, educating about COVID-19 too. So just having those important topics. I think one thing we miss is having important topics that are hot to the younger demographic to like kind of bring that forward. I know one way to bring about police brutality is, we could have talked about Colin Kaepernick or that person appeals to, young males. So like finding that one thing that appeals to the community and then tagging something educational along with it, I think is essential to having those, forums over the summer.
And also looking into your education systems, definitely your public school system, see what policies they're trying to pass. That is definitely major as our kids are now preparing to go back into school after summer break.
So I don't see any more questions. Anybody see any more questions?
I don't think I see any more.
No.
Let me double check.
Or does anybody have a last minute question?
If they don't, I do really just want to like commend you all on the work and the action items that you have been doing. And I thank everybody who has been on the call, but I really do want to thank you too for, I think we did this plan in 30 minutes, just like kind of bringing together our ideals. So I do really appreciate you all bringing each and every one of your voices to the table. And I appreciate the sisterhood that has been within this, the support system, like my good sis did this, or I really do appreciate that genuine sisterhood and uplifting one another, because I think it's so essential to keep us motivated during this time.
Yes, definitely. Y'all have inspired me. Definitely motivated me to keep going and keep fighting towards the actions of this week. So I will thank y'all for that. I've been tuning in to all of y'all's programming, as you can see, definitely supporting. And I thank y'all for that, for uplifting and being great role models in y'all states as well.
Yeah, third, I guess, all of that. And it's just an honor to be able to be on this call with you all, to share this space with you all, to call you all, like you said, sisters, and in a very genuine way. We're friends outside of this. We're sisters in the movement, but we're also just sisters. So it's great to be able to see all's work. And I know for both of you, you have ongoing fights that you're working on right now, and being able to just work alongside you all and support you all in that. And just knowing that whatever you all need, I'm here for you. And if I need anything, I know y'all got my back too.
I think it's important for us to also say, the marathon continues, and we always been pushing for it. We are done dying. Just making sure that we are, together. We're better as one than we are divided.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
I think that's the end. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Fuck this up, y'all.